लाल, पीला, हरा, नीला। तो चलो मिलकर इस रंगीन चादर को फिर से सिलते हैं। जो तेरा वो मेरा और जो मेरा वो सबका। इसीलिए पहली बार JSW पेंट्स लाए हैं 1000।
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Today is about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
सर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। साहब, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। हुजूर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान।
अपनों को खुशियां दिलाना आसान नहीं बनाते तो आगे कैसे बढ़ते। इसीलिए हम जो भी करते हैं उसे बेहतर बनाते आ रहे हैं, बनाते रहेंगे। बजाज फिनसर्व, थिंक इट डन।
आने वाले कल की दस्तक हमें सुनाई देती है, नई मंजिल है जिस ओर हमें वो दिशा दिखाई देती है। नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए जोश से निकल पड़े हम, आने वाला कल होगा हमारा। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
और नए इंडिया के इस सफर में टेक्नोलॉजी की शक्ति लेकर आपका भागीदार रहेगा रिलायंस। रिलायंस, नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
Welcome to the world of Tata Steel, a flagship company of the global business conglomerate, the Tata Group. Tata Steel is one of the world's most geographically diversified steel producers, with operations and commercial presence across the world. The story began with the dream of one man, Jamsetji Nusserwanji Tata, a pioneer, a visionary, a man ahead of his times. He had his heart set on building a steel plant in India that would compare with the best globally. His dream was brought to fruition by his son, Dorabji Tata, and thus was born Tata Iron and Steel in Jamshedpur in 1907. At the turn of the 21st century, fueled by its global aspirations, Tata Steel expanded its footprint to Southeast Asia in Singapore and Thailand. Acquisition of Chorus in Europe in 2007 placed it amongst the top global steel companies in the world. In 2015, Tata Steel set up a state-of-the-art integrated steel plant at Kalinganagar, Odisha in India. The Phase 2 expansion of Kalinganagar steel plant from 3 million TPA to 8 million TPA is currently underway. The company is all set to pursue domestic growth with its acquisition of Bhushan Steel Limited and the steel business of Usha Martin. This forms part of the overall strategy to increase its India footprint, build capacity in long products, and enrich the product portfolio. Besides steel manufacturing facilities, the company has mining assets in the state of Jharkhand and Odisha in India. Tata Steel has evolved into a leading steel manufacturer, catering to diverse market segments. In its trend-setting journey, spanning more than a century, Tata Steel has contributed immensely towards the well-being of the planet and people. Guided by its vision to be the global steel industry benchmark for value creation and corporate citizenship, Tata Steel is poised to lead the future.
सुरक्षा हर पिच पर, ताकत लंबी पारी खेलने की, परफेक्ट फिट, क्वालिटी टेस्ट, मैच से पहले ये सारे चेक्स बहुत जरूरी होते हैं, ठीक वैसे जैसे घर की छत चूज करते समय। तो बस ले आइए JSW कलर ऑन प्लस किचन, जो दे आपके घर को मजबूती और सुरक्षा। JSW कलर ऑन प्लस, सुंदर छत सालों साल।
JSW नियो स्टील TMT सरिया बेस्ट है।
सरिया दिखता कहाँ है?
ये देखिए बेस्ट क्वालिटी।
चेस्ट गार्ड है, दिखता कहाँ है?
दिखता नहीं तो कुछ भी लगाओगे क्या? ये देना।
JSW नियो स्टील TMT बार, प्योर स्टील, मजबूत घर।
ये दीवारें जानती हैं हर शुरुआत का पता। एक नई सोच के साथ अपने सपने की सुबह।
जब उम्मीद मिलाए हिम्मत से हाथ, हर सपने को मिले मजबूती का साथ।
आओ बनाए हर सपने को मजबूत JSW सीमेंट के साथ। JSW सीमेंट, द लीडर्स चॉइस। कभी हिंदुस्तान के रंगों के बारे में सोचा है? लाल, पीला, हरा, नीला। तो चलो मिलकर इस रंगीन चादर को फिर से सिलते हैं। जो तेरा वो मेरा, और जो मेरा वो सबका। इसीलिए पहली बार JSW पेंट्स लाए हैं 1808 शेड्स एक ही प्राइस पर। JSW पेंट्स, थिंक ब्यूटीफुल।
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Our today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Today is about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
सर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। साहब, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। हुजूर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता।
अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान।
अपनों को खुशियां दिलाना आसान नहीं बनाते तो आगे कैसे बढ़ते। इसीलिए हम जो भी करते हैं उसे बेहतर बनाते आ रहे हैं, बनाते रहेंगे। बजाज फिनसर्व, थिंक इट डन।
आने वाले कल की दस्तक हमें सुनाई देती है, नई मंजिल है जिस ओर हमें वो दिशा दिखाई देती है। नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए जोश से निकल पड़े हम, आने वाला कल होगा हमारा। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
और नए इंडिया के इस सफर में टेक्नोलॉजी की शक्ति लेकर आपका भागीदार रहेगा रिलायंस। रिलायंस, नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
Welcome to the world of Tata Steel, a flagship company of the global business conglomerate, the Tata Group. Tata Steel is one of the world's most geographically diversified steel producers, with operations and commercial presence across the world. The story began with the dream of one man, Jamsetji Nusserwanji Tata, a pioneer, a visionary, a man ahead of his times. He had his heart set on building a steel plant in India that would compare with the best globally. His dream was brought to fruition by his son, Dorabji Tata, and thus was born Tata Iron and Steel in Jamshedpur in 1907. At the turn of the 21st century, fueled by its global aspirations, Tata Steel expanded its footprint to Southeast Asia in Singapore and Thailand. Acquisition of Chorus in Europe in 2007 placed it amongst the top global steel companies in the world. In 2015, Tata Steel set up a state-of-the-art integrated steel plant at Kalinganagar, Odisha in India. The Phase 2 expansion of Kalinganagar steel plant from 3 million TPA to 8 million TPA is currently underway. The company is all set to pursue domestic growth with its acquisition of Bhushan Steel Limited and the steel business of Usha Martin. This forms part of the overall strategy to increase its India footprint, build capacity in long products, and enrich the product portfolio. Besides steel manufacturing facilities, the company has mining assets in the state of Jharkhand and Odisha in India. Tata Steel has evolved into a leading steel manufacturer, catering to diverse market segments. In its trend-setting journey, spanning more than a century, Tata Steel has contributed immensely towards the well-being of the planet and people. Guided by its vision to be the global steel industry benchmark for value creation and corporate citizenship, Tata Steel is poised to lead the future.
सुरक्षा हर पिच पर, ताकत लंबी पारी खेलने की, परफेक्ट फिट, क्वालिटी टेस्ट, मैच से पहले ये सारे चेक्स बहुत जरूरी होते हैं, ठीक वैसे जैसे घर की छत चूज करते समय। तो बस ले आइए JSW कलर ऑन प्लस की छत, जो दे आपके घर को मजबूती और सुरक्षा। JSW कलर ऑन प्लस, सुंदर छत सालों साल।
JSW नियो स्टील TMT सरिया बेस्ट है।
सरिया दिखता कहाँ है?
ये देखिए बेस्ट क्वालिटी।
चेस्ट गार्ड दिखता कहाँ है?
दिखता नहीं तो कुछ भी लगाओगे क्या? ये देना।
JSW नियो स्टील TMT बार, प्योर स्टील, मजबूत घर।
ये दीवारें जानती हैं हर शुरुआत का पता, एक नई सोच के साथ अपने सपने की सुबह।
जब उम्मीद मिलाए हिम्मत से हाथ, हर सपने को मिले मजबूती का साथ।
आओ बनाए हर सपने को मजबूत JSW सीमेंट के साथ। JSW सीमेंट, द लीडर्स चॉइस। कभी हिंदुस्तान के रंगों के बारे में सोचा है? लाल, पीला, हरा, नीला। तो चलो मिलकर इस रंगीन चादर को फिर से सिलते हैं, जो तेरा वो मेरा और जो मेरा वो सबका। इसीलिए पहली बार JSW पेंट्स लाए हैं 1808 शेड्स एक ही प्राइस पर। JSW पेंट्स, थिंक ब्यूटीफुल।
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy. is always about more than just a day. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata. Leadership with trust.
सर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। साहब, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। हुजूर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता।
अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान।
अपनों को खुशियां दिलाना आसान नहीं बनाते तो आगे कैसे बढ़ते। इसीलिए हम जो भी करते हैं उसे बेहतर बनाते आ रहे हैं, बनाते रहेंगे। बजाज फिनसर्व, थिंक इट डन।
आने वाले कल की दस्तक हमें सुनाई देती है, नई मंजिल है जिस ओर हमें वो दिशा दिखाई देती है। नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए जोश से निकल पड़े हम, आने वाला कल होगा हमारा। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
और नए इंडिया के इस सफर में टेक्नोलॉजी की शक्ति लेकर आपका भागीदार रहेगा रिलायंस। रिलायंस, नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
Welcome to the world of Tata Steel, a flagship company of the global business conglomerate, the Tata Group. Tata Steel is one of the world's most geographically diversified steel producers, with operations and commercial presence across the world. The story began with the dream of one man, Jamsetji Nusserwanji Tata, a pioneer, a visionary, a man ahead of his times. He had his heart set on building a steel plant in India that would compare with the best globally. His dream was brought to fruition by his son, Dorabji Tata, and thus was born Tata Iron and Steel in Jamshedpur in 1907. At the turn of the 21st century, fueled by its global aspirations, Tata Steel expanded its footprint to Southeast Asia, in Singapore and Thailand. Acquisition of Chorus in Europe in 2007 placed it amongst the top global steel companies in the world. In 2015, Tata Steel set up a state-of-the-art integrated steel plant at Kalinganagar, Odisha in India. The Phase 2 expansion of Kalinganagar steel plant from 3 million TPA to 8 million TPA is currently underway. The company is all set to pursue domestic growth with its acquisition of Bhushan Steel Limited and the steel business of Usha Martin. This forms part of the overall strategy to increase its India footprint, build capacity in long products and enrich the product portfolio. Besides steel manufacturing facilities, the company has mining assets in the state of Jharkhand and Odisha in India. Tata Steel has evolved into a leading steel manufacturer, catering to diverse market segments. In its trend-setting journey, spanning more than a century, Tata Steel has contributed immensely towards the well-being of the planet and people. Guided by its vision to be the global steel industry benchmark for value creation and corporate citizenship, Tata Steel is poised to lead the future.
सुरक्षा हर पिच पर, ताकत लंबी पारी खेलने की, परफेक्ट फिट, क्वालिटी टेस्ट, मैच से पहले ये सारे चेक्स बहुत जरूरी होते हैं, ठीक वैसे जैसे घर की छत चूज करते समय। तो बस ले आइए GSW कलर ऑन प्लस की छत, जो दे आपके घर को मजबूती और सुरक्षा। GSW कलर ऑन प्लस, सुंदर छत सालों साल।
GSW न्यू स्टील TMT सरिया बेस्ट है।
सरिया
We are just waiting for Diana. She's not able to hear us, so we are just waiting for that to get sorted out.
All right. Glad I'm not the only one with issues.
And just for everybody's information, I'll do quick introductions to everyone, and then speak a little bit as an opening to the session. Okay.
But Diana is dropped off, I think.
So you can just monitor that, Anuradha, and message me when she is online. Are we live now, or we are still to go live? I can't hear you. Tell me when I should start.
Live now. Live.
Do you want me to start?
Yes, yeah. Yes, Diana, we can hear you. Can start?
Yes. Good afternoon and welcome to this session on FinTech, transforming the world of finance as a part of CII's Partnership Summit for 2020. I'd like to welcome a very interesting set of panelists. We have Sopnendu Mohanty, the Chief FinTech Officer from the Monetary Authority of Singapore and also a friend. We have Diana Capone, Managing Director from Enterprise Lithuania. Thomas Crow, the CEO of Copenhagen FinTech from Denmark. Bartosz Lupinski, CEO of Millennium from Poland. And we have a message from Sri Anurag Singh Thakur, our Minister of State for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Government of India. We have dignitaries and we have many guests who have joined us from all over the world and our friends from the media. So ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you and good morning, good afternoon, depending on which part of the world you're in. Let me start by welcoming our panelists and providing you with short introductions to them. Sopnendu Mohanty has worked very closely with CII and personally with me over the years while he has been with the Monetary Authority of Singapore as their Chief FinTech Officer. And we have benefited from his guidance, from his advice in ways in which we can learn from everything that Singapore is doing in the areas of FinTech and many collaborative efforts as well. Diana Capone, Managing Director of Enterprise Lithuania, represents a government agency that's promoting entrepreneurship, supporting business development and fostering exports, and acts as a one-stop shop for foreign entrepreneurs looking for business partners in Lithuania. Thomas Crow, who's the CEO of Copenhagen FinTech. As you can see from the name itself, he's engaged in helping startups to connect with financial institutions, research organizations, NGOs, and governments to scale up their operations. We also have Bartosz Lupinski, the CEO of Millennium, Poland. Bartosz, with 20 years of experience in the IT industry, runs a global technology company employing over 1,300 people in 8 branches in Poland and offices all over the world. Incidentally, Bartosz, you have an office in Pune, India, and that's where I am right now. So we have something in common already. He's a specialist in multiple IT areas relating to financial services, healthcare, and we'll talk about that soon. The Government of India, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, has enabled India in the last 7 or 8 years towards digitization. The Digital India program of the government envisions to transform India into a digitally empowered society, which will focus on digital literacy, empowerment, and collaboration through open digital platforms for individual consumers, for small and medium businesses, and also for the largest ecosystems like the health ecosystem. Towards this, in the past decade, India has created the India Digital Stack, a foundation of individual digital IDs for 1 billion Indians, digital banking access, e-KYC, and a payment gateway which enables consumers to meet their day-to-day requirements digitally. For small and medium enterprises, a platform called the Open Credit Enablement Network, or OCEAN for short, has been recently set up to provide online credit access to our small and medium businesses. And India will soon launch its national digital health mission protocols, I believe as early as in January, which aims to develop an integrated digital health infrastructure that will, over a period of time, enable health services digitization. Now, being competitive in this constantly changing technology-driven environment is an enormous task. And to incumbents, our banks, our insurers, our asset management companies, it's doubly challenging because they have legacy systems, processes, practices that they need to manage and change in this new world led by fintechs. On the other hand, we have seen the kind of disruption through technological innovations that fintech companies are driving all over the world and even in India in the past few years, whether it's in payments, foreign exchange, lending, or investments. We are seeing multiple strides made by fintech companies. And yet, they are very often limited by not having the experience of a financial services incumbent. In an era where many daily purchases can be ordered and delivered instantaneously, it is no surprise now that people want the same with their financial transactions as well. They want it to be delivered transparently, simply, and in real time. We believe India provides the next big opportunity for fintech businesses, for insurtech businesses, and for investors. And even in the 6 months of the current year, India has raised $1.7 billion towards this. We know the global fintech space is significantly larger. And today we will discuss how companies in India, how those through examples of our panelists can gain from our large digital young market. As I mentioned earlier, this session is fortunate to have these global stalwarts with us today from multiple countries to share their own journeys and experience. Let me first start by playing a short video message from our Minister of State, Anurag Thakur.
Distinguished guest, ladies and gentlemen, Namaskar. I would like to begin by thanking CII for inviting me to deliver the keynote address on FinTech, transforming the world of finance. My senior colleague, Union Commerce Minister and Rail Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal has requested me to join this summit. I am currently in Jammu and Kashmir, where the first District Development Committee elections are being held. Unfortunately, I cannot join your discussions, but I did promise to share a few thoughts through a video message. The world around us has changed. Our lives, our livelihoods, and our outlook towards life has also changed. It has been over a year since the world was hit by the coronavirus. This COVID period has thrown up challenges and opportunities. The post-COVID world will be different in many ways. not only our personal lives, but also for the financial markets, organizations, and the governments in general. Prime Minister Modi, while addressing the nation in March, rightfully said, "Jaan hai to jahan hai." We prioritized health above all. As the situation stabilized, we opened up transportation, markets, factories. We shifted to Jaan bhi, Jahan bhi. We remained alert as well as responsive. While COVID-19 is fundamentally a health crisis, it also affected India and the world on an economic front. In order to reduce the spread of virus, it was important to shut down and social distance ourselves. Let me say it, physical distance ourselves. Like almost every other country in the world, India too saw its economic growth and activities fall. However, due to gradual and thoughtful unlocking of the lockdown and the resumption of the business activities in the second quarter, we are looking at a strong economic revival based on the strong fundamentals and a slew of structural reforms. India's recovery has been broad-based and has not come only from the agriculture sector. The index of the industrial production rose by 3.6% in the month of October, making it second consecutive month for the growth in the IIP data. In the GDP numbers of the quarter two, three sectors added positive value: agriculture, manufacturing, and utilities. From a decline of 40% in the first quarter, India's manufacturing sector bounced back to 0.6% growth in the second quarter. We have recorded 2 consecutive months, October and November, with the GST collections exceeding rupees 1 lakh crore rupee. And the collection for these months was higher than the corresponding months in the previous year. Of the 48 high-frequency indicators used by the Reserve Bank of India to track the economy, 30 parameters overtook the February mark. We have seen stellar recovery in passenger vehicle sales, two-wheeler sales, oil consumption, steel production, cement production, international cargo, amongst other areas. In the month of November, FIIs brought rupees 55,522 crores worth of shares, which is the highest ever in a single month till now. This is a sign of confidence that the global funds and investors look at India as a destination to invest, and they are bullish about the India growth story. India's forex reserves have risen by $100 billion in the last 8 months and stand at a record of $574 billion. In the last 3 months, India's manufacturing PMI has been above 50, which represents expansion in the manufacturing sector. On the digital payments front, and this is where FinTech has played an immense role, UPI transactions rose to 2.2 billion in the month of November, with the value of transactions being rupees 3.90 lakh crore rupees. Isn't it phenomenal? This growth in UPI and digital transaction is praiseworthy. It shows India's caliber, pedigree in the fintech space. With the use of fintech products, we have been able to provide agriculture credit at much lower rate to the farmers, and they are benefiting because of the JAM Trinity. In fact, we have also laid the digital highway for growth of the banking and the financial sector by taking up the task of connecting India's 6 lakh villages with the optical fiber network. In the last 5 years, over 1.5 lakh panchayats have been connected with the optical fiber cable. Only 1 lakh village panchayats are left, which will be done within a 12-month time. It is on this digital highway that India's digital payments is setting new benchmarks. Further, we also set up IFSC Gift City in Gujarat. In the last budget, Honorable FM announced to set up an international bullion exchange and an additional option for trade by global market participant. Last month, the India INX International Exchange achieved the highest ever trading volume of $10 billion in one day. Recently, we notified that operating lease and financial lease and any hybrid of operating and financial lease of aircraft or helicopter and engines of aircraft or helicopters of any other parts will be treated as financial products under the existing legal framework for IFSCs in the country. These reforms and initiatives have not only transformed the digital banking, financial, and the FinTech world, but also prepared India to become a global leader in the financial sector. On the legislative front, we also brought the bilateral netting of Qualified Financial Contracts 2020. This law will help banks optimally utilize capital, increase credit limits so as to enhance liquidity in the market. It would be free capital, reduce hedging cost, liquidity needs for the banks, primary dealers and other market makers. We also brought Banking Regulation Amendment Act 2020. This permits the RBI to expand its regulatory control over the cooperative banks in terms of management, capital, audit and liquidation. This again is historic. This will go a long way in checking bank frauds and crises and thereby protecting and safeguarding the money and the savings of the depositors. Moving on, history has shown us that finance is often the first to embrace the new technology and connectivity. From desktop to cloud, from internet to social media, from IT services to Internet of Things. We have come a long way in a short time. And there is daily disruption in businesses. The character of the global economy is changing. Technology is defining competitiveness and power in the new world. And it is creating boundless opportunity to transform lives. In the last 6 years of Modi government, banking and digital reforms have empowered the weak and brought into the mainstream those who were on the margins. While we have taken a slew of financial and banking reforms, we have also kept focus on making India a manufacturing hub. The role of India's financial sector is crucial for the success of one of our flagship schemes. The PLI scheme is something I truly believe that will transform the manufacturing sector. We extended the scheme to 10 key sectors for enhancing India's manufacturing capabilities and enhancing exports. The sectors ranging from electronics, pharmaceutical, drugs, food products, specialty steel, telecom and networking products, high efficiency products, high efficiency solar PV modules, automobiles, auto components. The total financial outlay over a 5-year period is 1,45,980 crores. This is in addition to the PLI schemes already in progress, which have an outlay of close to 51,000 crore rupees. Every single sector chosen today for the PLI scheme has an opportunity to become a game changer and can have a huge multiplier effect for the Indian economy. Promotion of manufacturing sector and creation of conducive manufacturing ecosystem will not only enable integration with the global supply chains, but also establish backward linkages with the MSME sector. The PLI schemes across the 10 sectors is a move to make India a manufacturing powerhouse whilst creating jobs and enhancing exports. Before I end, I would like to say this: unlike before, we no longer work in silos. No one step or reform or action can transform the world of finance or transform the way we do business in the country. It takes small, deliberate, targeted chances over a period of time that will yield result. And the Modi government is known for setting targets, achieving them in the record time. Whether it is reducing the corporate income tax rate for newly established manufacturing entities to only 15% or rationalization of the labor laws. Whether it is far-reaching, truly transformational Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code or Decriminalization of the Companies Act, whether it is laying down a national infrastructure pipeline of more than 100 lakh crore rupees with a roadmap of 5 years, or opening of 400 million Jan Dhan accounts. In fact, last week, Invest India was declared as the winner of the 2020 United Nations Investment Promotion Award by the UNACTAD. This is testament. Let me say this. This is the testament to the faith shown by the global community about India being the preferred destination for investment and appreciation of our reforms. And finally, the union budget is only a couple of months away. I am all ears for your suggestions and recommendations and even grievances. Do not hesitate to email or tweet to me. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
That was a comprehensive message from our minister, focusing initially on what the government did in the early months of the pandemic with their efforts to focus on health first, and thereafter the reopening of the economy in various stages, leading to a number of initiatives that the government has pushed through to attract investment, to make India an even stronger place, including a manufacturing hub for the world, and the significant role that FinTech plays and the entire financial services plays and will play towards this realization of our Make in India dream. Let me move on now to Diana Clepon to share her initial thoughts.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, namaskar. And for my introductory remarks, I would like to use my presentation, so please allow me to share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We are using so many different platforms that sometimes it's a challenge to know every new one. Yes, so before talking about Lithuania as a rising global fintech hub, I would like to give you some general facts about our country. And basically, our country, to compare with India, is very small in terms of area and population, but we are very proud of the fact that we are open for opportunities. Lithuania has happily joined WTO in 2001, was accepted by European Union and NATO at 2004, 2007 Schengen member, letting its citizens to travel freely across all other countries, and also we became member of OECD in 2018. And however, this is not yet enough for our ambitious country, and we see that we could really foster collaboration with India. And we were very happy. Last year, the Vice President of Republic of India, His Excellency Venkaiah Naidu, has visited Lithuania together with a delegation. And our agency, Enterprise Lithuania, was responsible for hosting a business forum between Indian and Lithuanian representatives for that occasion. And we have noticed many potential, especially in the technology sector. So here in this sector we do have what to offer for your country, and our economy is dynamic and open. Regulation burden is relatively low, especially for tech businesses, which makes a good combination of with entrepreneurship and innovation performance. And pandemia, of course, is a great disaster for all of us, but nevertheless, we see it as a chance to transform our economy to the higher value-added production level. what we need a lot in such a small country. And our focus now is of course fighting the economical damages, and we are doing quite well, as you see. Number one in managing post-global recession, and just 1.8% of our we had economy decrease throughout 2020. Actually, it was the smallest economic decrease in the whole Europe. But of course, at the same time, we are in preparation of the plan how to use this rapidly increased digital skills of the population and digitalize the business models for the future sustainable growth of the high-tech sector. And FinTech success in Lithuania is probably a best example how the public institutions can influence development of the innovation ecosystem. Around 2017, Bank of Lithuania, which is the main regulator of the FinTech market, noticed that there is an opportunity window to grow FinTech sector and uncertainty that Brexit brings, as well as the situation in our local banking market. It is actually very concentrated. Basically, we have 4 big banks. So the aim was to increase competition in the sector as well. And companies in all sectors need talented teams and business-friendly conditions. And FinTechs need it even more because it's a highly regulated area. And we need this good regulation environment that encourages innovation. So here are the main advantages what Lithuania can offer for the new FinTechs as a forward-thinking regulator. First of all, smooth authorization, 6-9 months required to obtain an EMI or a payment institution license, and a single license can unlock the whole EU market, uniting 512 million users and 23 million SMEs. So I think it could be interesting for Indian FinTech companies. And I could mention such a high-profile players like Google, SumUp, Curve, who have received licenses from the bank in Lithuania and are operating from our country in whole Europe. Specialized bank license for challenger banks, or so-called sandbox. It's a 5 times lower initial capital requirement than the traditional bank license. Only 1 million euros is needed. It's also fully eligible for passporting across all the European Union. And Revolut, for example, UK-based FinTech, now it's valued for 1.7 billion euros, is the biggest company so far what received a specialized banking license in our country. And also I should mention newcomers program or one-stop shop for meetings and consulting services with regulators. And also it is possible to apply online and remotely, as well as we are offering an efficient infrastructure, what means what is a central link system. It's a payment system developed and operated by our main regulator, the Bank of Lithuania, which allows customers of financial institutions to execute euro payments across SEPA area. And Centralink was launched in 2015. So basically, the FinTechs that settle in Lithuania have an opportunity to reach out for another 34 countries using SEPA systems. And non-banks can access a SEPA system as well and can issue IBAN numbers for their clients. And this is a very big advantage for the FinTechs. All these reasons all these conditions were a main and basic reasons for the fast FinTech ecosystem growth in Lithuania. So this growth in last year, it grew by 50% in numbers of the FinTech startups. And for this year, currently we're counting 210 FinTech companies operating in a country, including such internationally known brands as Revolut, Simples, Google, what I mentioned already, Devera, and etc. And in Vilnius, the capital city of Lithuania, Vilnius ranks as a #1 city hub for the tech startups attraction according to the FDI Attraction Index in 2019. And also we provided 62 electronic money licenses for the fintech startups. And here is a map of the whole ecosystem. So as I mentioned, 210 fintech companies employing 3,400 employees in the sector, and actually it's a sector with very high wages. And in general, Lithuania now ranks number 4th in a global fintech ranking according to FinTech this year result. So it was my brief introduction, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana. That was more than, it was brief, but it was a very comprehensive introduction. I wouldn't be surprised if some of my fintech friends have already started packing their bags. And if the flights are open to Lithuania, you may just see them there exploring opportunities.
They are more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me now move on, and we will start with a short video shared by Mr. Lupinski, and after which I will request him, Bartosz, to make his opening comments. So first, the video, please.
Face-to-face or screen-to-screen? Friends for life or live with friends? Online shopping or offline saving? There is no single answer to these questions. Why? Because our life takes place in both worlds. Today, digital is more than likes and strikes. It's all about an easier life and saving time. InPearly understands this perfectly and connects both worlds in one platform. How does it work? It's easy. Your customer connects with an agent via a widget on your website. Using audio-video tools, screen sharing or co-browsing, an agent discusses the topic, shares the documents, and takes the customer through the key points. Meanwhile, InPearly recognizes the speech and writes it down in the form of an original text, highlighting keywords, and even translates from one language into another if needed. Next, the agent verifies the customer's identity using biometric tools and allows them to sign the document, or a third party is invited to the virtual room if their opinion or signature is needed. The process is convenient, fast, and doesn't require meeting face-to-face. Advantages of InPearly for your company: remote document signing abiding by the letter of the law, better management of agents' work, a new sales channel. InPearly. In person, remotely.
Over to you, Bartosz.
Well, may you live in interesting times. It's the wish and the curse at the same time. And here we are, facing all this restriction, threats. Yet, in my opinion, and not only my opinion, we are facing greatest opportunities of a decade. From technology perspective, it's really incredible. Let me start by saying that it's good to be back in India. So I still miss the sound, smell, taste, vibrant cities, and all those smiling people, because at the end of the day, it's all about people and experiences. And the same with your clients, with our clients. It is said that customer experience is the most important thing. Well, maybe it's the only thing there is. So this is why we created InPearly. And I would like to share some of the thoughts that made this possible and why we started with this journey. If we look at the services that we've been used to, and we look at them now from this working from home perspective, or I should rather say living in the offices, the customer journey looked completely differently. And I think we can safely say that we have been brutally digitized. Well, we survived. We are living, breathing, hopefully didn't lose many customers. But since we are back on our feet, maybe it's time to go back to the drawing boards and design experiences, and let's mirror the best in the world that we remember and combine the best technologies achievements and go beyond. Because we can easily redesign customer journeys using platforms as Imperly to deliver this innovative omni-channel, which we are so familiar with. The virtual branch that was presented actually combines the entire comprehensiveness of services that customer expects from all traditional branches with the ability to manage processes remotely. So I think that with all the AI, biometrics, business shaping tools that we have in our hands, it's never be better time to design our future. And I will start with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bartosz, and your comments on the entire customer experience and expectation is something we'll come back to later. Let me move to now Thomas for your initial remarks.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me and Copenhagen FinTech to participate in this panel discussion. Let me just share a bit of slides here. Hopefully you can see my screen in a minute. Can you see my screen?
We can.
I hope you can. Good. Thank you very much. So, all right, let me try to offer a little bit different perspective in my opening remarks here. First, a little bit about who we actually are, just to understand also the perspective I'm bringing in here. So we're very much looking into this from a global community perspective, not from a single point of commercial perspective, or not from a single country perspective, but more from a global community, because I think global problems probably need solving from a global community and with a global mindset. So we are what we call a community fueled co-innovator. So we work out of Copenhagen but very much have the Nordics in focus, but also try to build a global community of innovators and entrepreneurs and financial institutions and kind of expert and thought leaders around us in order to tackle some of these problems and help accelerate the solutions that needs to solve some of these global problems that we look into. We've been visiting India a number of times over the past 2 to 3 years. We quite often have Indian companies sitting with us and trying to use us as a gateway for partnerships in the Nordics and in Europe, and to test and validate whether some of the technologies and great ideas that come out of India is also scalable in the region where we are. So we have quite an experience with working with Indian companies, and the other way around, also trying to help Nordic companies go to market together with Indian partners. So this is extremely exciting for us. I think what we work very much with is trying to the open innovation space and trying to say there's certainly something that you should be looking at within your own industry or organizational boundaries, but there should be also a lot of opportunities and possibilities to look externally when we especially in the startup space and looking for technologies and solutions from there on. So again, we're coming from the global perspective, very much from a partnership and co-creation perspective, very much looking towards the impact space and sustainability, And the financial technologies as a driver, especially also now in this situation that we are in now with the global pandemic, looking to the green recovery of building back better, and solving those important challenges for humanity. This is just our ecosystem that we work within Denmark. If we look at the Nordics, we count around 1,000 startups within the financial technology space. Give and take, if you look at it from a global perspective, you have like 10 to 15,000 different innovative startups working to solve some of these problems, right? So it's very much a question of how do we get an overview and how do we source the right solutions for the right problems. I think this is also speaking about partnerships of the essence of that. So this is just to show how the Danish perspective or the Danish ecosystem, is looking and counting around 300 startups. This is a work we've been doing on mapping sustainability and impact startups in the Nordic space, where we count around 200 solutions within sustainability. Also very much coming from an angle of human-centered design, highly digital infrastructure, and a globally connected ecosystem. Small region, so that is also the question here. How do we, as a small region, as a small country, collaborate across countries, and especially with a country like India, where there's so immense opportunities. And then in the end, just a little bit about how we view the future, and of course also coming from the Nordic angle. I think one of the interesting things, and I think your minister also just briefly mentioned that the financial technology sector or industry is very much now working across industries and being embedded across industries. And I think that's what we're seeing here also, moving from something that only happens in the financial sector and the financial industry to something that underpins and becomes an infrastructure for whether it's agriculture, manufacturing, or what have you. So embedded finance is certainly a trend, a global trend, but also a trend that we see here in the Nordics. I think we see, especially in the wealth management space, and really interesting things happening in tackling sustainability and much more holistic approaches to financial health and literacy. Of course, we have the whole space of incumbent reinvention, where some of these players that we work with, many of these players help the existing financial institutions in their digital transformation. And we also have a number of companies helping Indian banks in their digital transformation, whether it's in roles as an aggregator, integrator, supplier, or just an orchestrator of the ecosystem. And then last but not least, and this is very important, I think, especially in these times with COVID and global pandemic, we see the SME digitalization as a huge opportunity also to connect between the Nordics and India. And we have a segment here that in many ways also recognized by the financial institutions themselves have been underserved for a long time and also not very digitized. And I think here we have a huge opportunity for FinTech to play a role in accelerating that digital transformation, and especially in times of COVID, also make sure that the survival rate is good. So I think this is some of the perspectives that I wanted to share here, and especially in regards to the Nordics and India and partnerships collaboration.
Thank you, Piyush, and it was interesting to hear about the larger ecosystem that you work with, and the interesting areas of human-centric design, as well as sustainability and the role that it will play in this area. Let me move now to Swapnendu for his remarks. Over to you, Swapnendu.
Hi, Sanjeev. Because I don't have any presentation, so I'm going to speak to this intervention of mine. This year has been interesting play for us, and I'm going to focus on this year, the state of FinTech in Singapore. When COVID-19 came in early February, two things happened. I think a lot of our small businesses went on a state of distress, and the FinTech startups were suddenly worried about, because the investment commitment they had was a bit of a unclear then. But through the crisis, we went through a lot of programs, supports. from the government and from the ecosystem, from investors, all stood by. And there's one number, Sanjay was sharing with you before, that last year we had a total of $1.2 to $1.3 billion of fintech investment in Singapore. This year, through the crisis, we actually going to exceed the total investment. So we may end up in getting $1.5 billion, which is bigger than last year, which was a big surprise for us that through the crisis, the investors were quite bullish about the fintech growth in Singapore. And if you look at the number and understand where the money went, 50% of the investment money went on fintechs who are helping financial institutions to digitize faster and small businesses to digitize and get into the digital finance space. So which was a strong signal for us saying that fintech have arrived. They are graduated from a payment service or a lending service to a much more back-end middle office transformation, a B2B sector, which kind of reflects that the sector has now matured. It is invested in multiple segment of a financial sector, be it a front office transformation, be it a middle office automation, or a back office rationalization, or the fintech themselves providing financial services where they want to get regulated and offer a competing service. So that's what happened in the industry. The industry has matured through the crisis. It survived the crisis. A lot of our fintech, which are regulated as a lending platform, they also saw a significant demand growth. Of course, the losses were crept more bigger than the previous pre-COVID number, but then largely most of the platform lending companies survived the crisis quite reasonably in a good shape. Towards the end of the year, which is around early part of December or end November, Singapore announced 4 digital bank licenses, and this has been a suspense for the whole year because there are 21 applicants, 4 finally made through, 2 retail digital bank licenses and 2 wholesale bank licenses were given out, and that's sent a strong signal that the opportunity for entities who are willing to be licensed and willing to put a different model have a huge opportunity in Singapore and beyond Singapore also. Asia itself saw 21 new licenses being handed out called digital bank licenses in the ASEAN region. So there's a huge growth going to come out of this through the crisis, out of the crisis, where banks which are digitizing themselves faster, or the fintechs which are helping bank to digitize, or the newer licenses which have a different construct are coming to the market. So there'll be huge competition, great opportunity for consumers as they get access to better financial services. So that's on the ecosystem progress we had in Singapore and beyond in ASEAN market. On the public infrastructure side, we had a significant upgrade. Before this, we went live 2 years back with our public rail for eKYC, which is using a public data system called MyInfo, which has got more than 70-80 trusted data, which banks today use to onboard customer by an API call process with just a consent from the consumer. We had launched 2 years back another public infrastructure on the payment side called Pay Now, where you can use your national ID or your mobile phone number as a proxy to pay each other using, and this is where the banks used to are using for account holders to pay each other in 3 clicks, 0 cost domestic transfer. This year, last week, we officially launched our public data system, and we call it SG Findex. And this is a public API gateway where participating bank can share the data, where a customer can go to a bank online portal, then authorize the bank to pull data from other banks participating in that platform to see a consolidated holdings of your liabilities, assets, investment, including government data on provident fund and other details. And that we are going to get more expand that membership to insurers, exchanges as we go to different phases. There's a significant public infrastructure deployment because that is a uniquely Singapore way of open banking, where we believe the open banking can operate as a public infrastructure where the participating banks can come together through a thoughtful governance with some common understanding of level playing field, can participate in moving data freely for consumers based on their consent. And the consumer can use their national ID to authorize the data pullout. Apart from using bank account to see a consolidated balances, we also put a public app where you can go and use your national ID to pull all your balances together if you want to work with a financial advisor. So that's our third public infrastructure which went into production this year. On the payment side, we saw a rapid growth during the crisis. Almost 4 times the volumes have gone on the e-payment side. We are further seeing the cash in the system are going down. We hope that if the trend continues, our 2025 cashless goals will be achieved, and we're on the trend. So that's on the payment side. But there's a significant breakthrough, Sanjeev. We are seeing what is the last mile for every policymaker is cross-border payment. Singapore and Thailand will be the first 2 countries by first quarter next year where the respective domestic payment systems will be connected. And by that connection, people from Singapore can pay to somebody in Thailand by just knowing the mobile phone number and vice versa. So essentially 2 domestic central addressing payment system are getting connected. India is going to be the second one. We are hoping that next year, towards end of fourth quarter next year, we should be able to connect our faster payment system with India's UPI rails. As you know that last year, RuPay was enabled to be accepted in Singapore and vice versa. Nets can be accepted in India, but crisis came in, we couldn't roll out. But the systems are now all in place for both countries to connect their respective merchant payment system. But the account system will get connected by fourth quarter is the current plan where UPI and faster payment of Singapore can get connected. So we are hoping to push forward on connecting domestic payment system to other jurisdiction, because cross-border payment will be a key enabler for us as we expand our digital connectivity. And to end this intervention, we are also pushing through trusted data connectivity. We believe that one of the key enabler of COVID-19 recovery will be not only getting cross-border payments connected, have an ability to start cross-border data connectivity happening, because most countries have challenges in accessing respective data set. So we have started talking to willing countries where they are willing to have a certain agreement on building trusted data corridor by which businesses can use those rails to start doing cross-border businesses. And as we think the push will be there for the trade finance sector, which is going to come out of the crisis stronger if we have these rails in place. And one more last item before I close my intervention is the CBDC, the central bank digital currency. We completed our 3 years experiment on the central bank digital currency. We declared that we have completed our understanding of that space, and we believe the time for production path to the digital currency will take place sometime next year. Our focus will be on the wholesale digital currency, and we are in the process of working with different jurisdictions on how to deploy wholesale digital currency as a way to improve cross-border settlement, especially for cross-border payments. While we believe the retail digital currency will be a play for countries who have a domestic demand for such form of need or such form of retail need, but not for Singapore as of now. So with that intervention, that's my short summary for Singapore's FinTech.
Thank you, Swapnendu. And that was, again, a whole bunch of exciting, I would say, interventions that Singapore is doing and is known to do. Particularly exciting is what you talked about Singapore and Thailand starting their or linking their domestic payments. You can do cross payments now, and you talked about India having also gone to that. So we will hopefully see that next year. I'm just wondering, that means I can now order my roti canai or my Singapore chicken rice, but we just need somebody to deliver it now over here in Pune. But from what you've talked about, my first question comes to you that you've just presented a very attractive set of opportunities for Indian fintech companies to look at Singapore and providing a challenge to Diana and Lithuania. But as Diana said, Lithuania opens you up to the EU. So does Singapore today, if somebody were to set up a digital bank from India and get a license, open it up to the region, or is that something that's on the plan in the near future?
You mean, Ed, I think the digital bank license per se is the license to operate in Singapore. But I think I don't see there is any specific restriction on how a digital bank license issued in India, whether that construct allowed them to put a branch and then push through the different market. I'm sure that's the making, because I personally believe that a digital bank license will not be that profitable if they operate in a single jurisdiction. They got to have a scale, and they got to have a multiple jurisdiction operation to be profitable in the long run. So by design, digital bank license will have to operate in multiple countries, and I'm pretty sure regulators in multiple jurisdictions will find a way to support such a construct.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And let me use that to move towards customers and to
So Sanjay, just I almost forgot. I think the part of digital bank license is the wholesale banking, which is the cross-border support for businesses, and that need multiple jurisdiction licensing operation, so that becomes more efficient. So that will be the driver behind multiple jurisdiction operating framework.
Okay, I was going to give the first round to Diana, but I think I'll have to wait now to see what more comes out of Singapore.
No.
But this isn't a boxing match, so let me get to Bartos. You talked about the entire ecosystem on customer service and experience that you've built, and your omnipresence video that we saw. During the pandemic, so the last 8 months, what were some of the key additional customer expectations or service offerings that Bartos you saw as becoming relevant?
There are two perspectives. One is customer perspective, which is probably the most important one, in which we want to be secure. This is crucial nowadays. Also from healthcare perspective, we want to be included in society. We want to be connected to the world. So it means that world has to come to us, because we are in this situation. We did some research together with EY, and it turns out that we want to be that way in the future. I mean, we have this necessity to be with people, but we want to be with people that we care about, and we want to be with our relatives. We want to be with our friends, but everything else should be digitized the best possible way. So it really impacted this transition, this digital journey tremendously, and we observe it. It's not about if, it's when and how fast can you do it. This is why entire ecosystems, fintech, but it's everything that it's tech. It's also prop tech. It's med tech. It's really skyrocketing. It's very important also to be open globally. And this is what Thomas said, that the new approach is to to create an open environment. And in India, I'm so glad that you are opening to also international payments, because we are suffering it ourselves, because we have subsidiary in different countries, India, including India, in Pune, as a matter of fact. So we are neighbors, I think. So yeah, it's getting faster, this digital transformation, and it's going to accelerate even more, and it's going to be, and it will stay with us for a longer time. And actually, I strongly believe that we are reshaping the world right now.
Thank you. Let me move to Diana. And Diana, you talked about Lithuania. You talked about the Bank of Lithuania, which has been a very big catalyst in building, and a very big proponent of building FinTech and the entire ecosystem around that. Now, we know that when you work in a digital economy, you work with a lot of data, and increasingly issues around data privacy and data security are becoming more and more important. We know about the hack that we've been reading the last 2 days on the US government and US companies. Can you share any insights on how Lithuania is focusing on guarding both privacy and security of data and of FinTech systems?
Thank you for the question, and of course it's a very, very important, it's the most important probably challenge what we will be facing more and more, because the amount of data is increasing and the amount of digital services is increasing. In Lithuania, 95% of public services are available online, and we have a very, very high usage of this. Also in Lithuania, we are probably champions of cyber attacks. If I remember correctly, we are facing about 4,000 cyber attacks every day. So for only to our public sector, but we have a very good cyber security center, and we are investing a lot of attention, our talents and technologies in this area. And by the way, last year, I think, yes, last year, Lithuania, or the year before, Lithuania was number 4 in the world by the cybersecurity index, which is the number, the first three countries were US, France, and UK, I believe, and we were 4th. So it's just demonstrate how much attention we pay for this security of our IT systems. Talking about data protection, consumers' data protection, here, yes, we are, as all European countries, we have a very strict rules. We have this GDPR regulations, which is probably as strictest in the world. Talking about consumers' private data protection, and sometimes this GDPR even makes us for other businesses create some not very good. Actually, some of our businesses are less competitive because of that. They have to follow these very strict rules. So I think that this data protection is ensured at the highest level, and I would say that probably we should review this GDPR and to allow, to allow in some areas more flexibility, because the data is the main asset, and we have to allow the businesses operate with assets. Also in Lithuania, we have a program of the government to open as much as the public data for the businesses. And as an example, I could give the last year we had registers of our real estate became open for the prop tech companies and for technology companies, and also some of our registers are also available for the companies to get use the data, and also in fintech sector, not only the Bank of Lithuania, but I mentioned that we have 4 big banks in Lithuania, private banks, and they created as well kind of the sandboxes where new startups can use the real data, of course, the personalized data of the banks to develop their technologies.
Thank you, Diana. And I'm going to use that as a way to move to a natural extension, which is that for the digital world to work, and we talked about data security and privacy, eventually it is about building customer trust in all these services. And Thomas, let me start with posing this question to you. In your experience, what are the various elements that fintech companies need to think about, that regulators need to think about to ensure that we build trust with customers in our offerings?
Sure. So maybe let me start with commenting a little bit on what was said before. I'm not sure the right way to go is actually to ease up on some of the regulation here. I think we actually need regulation. I think we also need strict regulation. I think we have plenty of examples of companies not necessarily being able to handle data in a proper way. So I'm not necessarily sure that that is the right way to go. Let me just start with that. I think some of the ingredients here, and I think the EU has taken some good steps in that, is in creating some of the guidelines for data usage. And I know Singapore is also leading the way in this area. We had a number of discussions and trying to learn from what is going on in Singapore, also installing these guidelines around, for instance, ethical application of AI in different solutions. So I think regulators have actually a pretty important role to play here. I think again, coming back to I think just because we can doesn't necessarily mean we should, which means that there's some ethical, fundamental ethical discussions to be had in just financial institutions and fintech companies, creating transparency in use of data, ensuring explainability, and incorporating good and solid governance models around that. Again, I'm speaking a little bit around because that's a very hot topic right now in the Nordic region, especially within artificial intelligence and machine learning. And you know, how do these algorithms work? How do we ensure that from board level and down in the organization that we truly really understand what it is, how they're working, and the implications, the impact of these technologies. So I think very important ingredients are to create transparency, regulation, one thing, transparency, understandability, explainability, and have those discussions, and then implementing them, ensuring that we have good guiding principles around data usage, privacy, and so on and so forth. And I think there's no one country leading that. This needs to be it's a global challenge. And it needs a global solution. You might say GDPR was, I think, maybe the first from a European perspective, but it's certainly something that we need to collaborate on a global scale to ensure these global companies comply. So yeah, that would be my take.
Thanks, Thomas. Swapnendu, what about you? What's your view on this whole need to build customer trust around digital offerings?
So Sanjeev, as Thomas explained, there are three parts to the trust business. One is the environment which the consumer will operate. So like India, there is a need to build certain trusted public rail where a certain data set exists and they are trusted. That's step one. And a trusted ID system, a trusted payment rails, a trusted data system. Because the world of fake news, you must have some sense of certain critical data, which is golden source, protected, and stay as a common utility for public at large to access. And the fourth pillar is, as a public rail, is the right to consent, whom to send data, whom to share data, and every citizen have a right to decide whether they're going to use the data for using to third party for getting certain digital services. The choice should be with consumer. So that's part one. The part two of the requirement is regulation, and the regulation are in three forms. First thing, that consumer protection, AML, KYC, and safety and soundness of the system. They must exist where the consumer confidence should be very high in event of a crisis, that there's a regulation which will be out there to protect consumer. And the fourth pillar is around options, the choices, the ecosystem. What can we do? Once we have a public rail with data being run on a trusted platform, there's regulation out there. Are there enough players in the system who can deliver innovative financial services? So that's the third pillar. But there are certain elements which is also now being discussed. I mean, yesterday, Sanjeev, I'm sure you are following, 46 states are putting an antitrust case against Facebook. Now, that says something about where we are heading to. I think the role of AI has become a centered point of this whole discussion, because there's a one data set, what to do with the data, and how this AI are going to use the data to deliver financial services. And when it comes to AI, there are four things to worry about: fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency. And each of the four requires certain regulatory framework and certain pragmatic solutions so that I can measure fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency, I'll call as FEAT, in a way that there are evidence for us to understand, is there any breaches to this understanding. So once we have this 3+1 construct, I think the trust factor will get better and stronger, and then we can move on in making a truly inclusive system. And I want to end this by saying, during this conference, there's only one quote which stayed on with me in spite of the huge conference we did last week. You know, this young guy, billionaire Vitalik Buterin, the Ethereum co-founder, he made a statement which really stuck to me. He said, privacy should be for weak, transparency should be for the strong. So I think that beautifully sums up the trust factor.
Yeah, that is a good way to summarize that, Swapnendu. Let's move to another important area where we know financial services plays a critical role, and that's in healthcare. And as I talked about earlier, India is now leaping across the digital divide with its national digital health mission, which will be launched, I believe, next month. This includes a digital health ID for every Indian. It's about creating a common protocol for health records, digital storage, so that over a period of time, you can get more customizable and better health solutions, and about linking doctors, hospitals, labs with patients. I believe that there is some very important and interesting work, Bartos, that your company, Millennium Health, is doing in working on an algorithm that will help in the diagnosis of brain tumors. Is there something that you would like to share with us about this?
Yes, it's one of our exciting project which we do in Millennium Healthcare sector, well, it's about diagnosing tumor using AI. It's getting more and more people and universities and hospitals involved in this project. We hope to get it as open and as global as possible, because well, we strongly believe that only we can fight this only together. So we're gonna share all results, of course, with others. But there is, referring to previous question, there is also tremendous risk in this area. Data privacy is something that it's really challenging, because as we are touching the data of patients and it's accessible, that brings really the questions: who should own the data? And we strongly believe that the only people that own the data are actually patients and users. And using smart contracts and technology, we are able to limit access to this data to anyone else. And of course, there are regulations that are needed. And this is something that I completely agree with you, that should be done on a global scale, and all countries should agree that it's something that must be protected. So as usually, technology is always faster than regulations. So we have to speed up with all the regulations, because the risk is gigantic, because you can limit mixing healthcare and finance. You can limit, for example, rating of a customers, because you have a healthcare leakage of the data. And that's something that is happening right now. So we have to struggle with this, and we have to come up as a global society with the solution how to protect this data, and then make more efficient all the healthcare that will be sharing anonymous information that, from AI perspective, is essential to get AI effective. So a lot of work to do ahead of us.
No, that's an important area, and I'm going to open it up first to Diana and then to Swapnendu to share their views, if any, around initiatives that either in Lithuania or in Singapore are happening on the health space. And I know that technology challenges are such that my picture is not very well visible right now, though hopefully everybody can hear me. So I'm going to do a quick dial out and dial in while you speak. So Diana, first to you.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Yes, in Lithuania, I'm very happy to hear about what India is planning regarding e-health, and we would gladly share our information, because we have this e-health system already 5 years probably, and that means that actually it's a central system where there is all data of all the patients and all the healthcare institutions. They have an access to this data. Also, we are having a functioning system of electronic prescription. So if I go to my doctor and I am getting some drugs prescribed, I'm not getting this paper, this paper prescription. I just can go to the pharmacy to provide my ID card, and my prescriptions are there. And with this pandemia, it made a good, actually, it gave a good speed to the further development of the system, because now we are having already this teleconsultations. So basically, with my doctor for the primary consultation with a practitioner, I don't need to go to the healthcare institution. I just can have a consultation on a phone, and I can get my prescription also on a system, but I don't need to go to take it. And now we are preparing a new regulation for the telemedicine, for the teleradiology, for telecardiology, and also for the telemonitoring of the patients, to enable the healthcare system, to to have as less as possible contacts with the patients. And I think it was very interesting what Bartosz mentioned about this brain tumor scanning, and we have a startup. They actually developed I think it's a very similar technology. It's AI based as well, and they are using this technology for the radiological images scanning to help find some some not only tumors, but I think some bad things which are usually invisible with the human eye. So I would gladly share a contact if it might be interesting for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and over to you, Swapnendu.
On the health side, on the health side, I will focus on how there's a certain progress we had during the crisis, because the crisis forced certain changes in our system so that people can be remotely managed. A lot of the health, a lot of going to the clinic, you don't have to show up. There's a lot of apps came up around to do a remote access to doctors and do some remote telehealth checks. So the crisis did trigger a lot of innovation in the health sector, but I would say more substantially, the health sector impact was on the insurance side for the financial sector, because a lot of the data set now are available for creating custom designed insurance structures on the health side, which was not possible earlier. Quite as plain vanilla insurance products were available. In fact, in our MAS sandbox, there was a particular candidate who experimented on a structure where women during pregnancy have a certain propensity of a certain medical condition, and this system used to generate an auto claim process at the point of detection. So there are this innovation which happened as part of our extended focus on health side, especially on the insurance side. But coming back to the infrastructure which we launched called SG FinTech, now it is for the financial sector. We are going to expand in future to other sector and the primary sectors, and the next one very likely will be the health sector, because there's a lot of demand for of managing health data for a much more efficient health services needed in Singapore. Because generally speaking, Singapore health systems have been quite advanced, and the technology in place are quite progressive in many ways, and we can go further beyond what we have today.
Thanks, Swapnendu. Let me, in the interest of time, move to the last question to you, Thomas. Given your experience of working with a very large ecosystem, one of the challenges that we've seen with startups in India is they have a good idea, they make it work, but the ability to scale up becomes challenging. Any lessons from you to the startup world over here?
So I think this is a problem that we see very similar in Denmark and most of the Nordics. We have been working on is a number of things. So first thing is what we have been working on, sourcing talent, either that is existing in the ecosystem today or that should come from outside of the ecosystem, like the right talent with the right competencies and capabilities that can help these startups that have taken the journey before, and that can help these startups in their scaling journey, right? So I think one thing to focus on is the talent that is already there, but also some of the talent that we can source from the outside as an open ecosystem. Another thing is that from our perspective is also certainly the access to risk capital, right? So although it's there in the early stages in decent amount, I think especially in the later stages where you really need those money to do that scaling journey, I think what we have been focusing is also to connect to a global ecosystem of investors that can support and that also ties into the to the first thing that around talent, right? So talent and access to risk capital that can support that scaling journey. And then I think last but not least, what we also very much have focused on is creating that network and that kind of globally connected, creating a globally connected ecosystem and network where we can help these startups with the right connections in their business development activities. So I think sitting as a startup in either India or Denmark or Lithuania or wherever in the world you sit, you need to be able to plug into a network that can help you doing those crucial partnerships on your scaling journey. So I think what we have been doing, and especially with Singapore and with great support of the MAS and Soplendo, is trying to create those fintech bridges. And as one example, I can mention that we're right now running a program with UNDP in Singapore, CII and DBS in Singapore, where we take 4 Nordic companies, 2 Danish and 2 Swedish, and try to help them plug in faster and better and more efficient in the Singaporean ecosystem and use Singapore as a gateway to the rest of the ASEAN. So I think that's just one example, and we've been trying a number of times, and also succeeding in doing the same with India. Both one way, from the Nordics to India, and the other way from India, and helping Indian companies plug into the European ecosystem. So I think, to summarize, it's around getting the right talent in. It's around access to risk capital, and then helping them plug into a global network of potential partnerships that can help fast track their scaling journey.
Thank you, Thomas. We've had an interesting session that's now coming towards its end. We spoke about how the pandemic has made the role of fintechs that much more relevant today. Customers were anyway getting accustomed to increased digital access. And we talked about the role that human-centric design plays. We talked about the fact that the current customer experience is going to continue. So things will not likely go back to the earlier days. We talked about while India offers a large market to global fintech companies and to investors, we also heard some very interesting avenues for accessing the Eurozone, for accessing Singapore and the Asian countries as well, from Diana and from Sopnendu. We also, and interestingly, Thomas, you talked about the role not only of human-centric design, but of sustainability as we build future financial ecosystems, and the importance it is going to continue to play. The need for data privacy and transparency, and as Sopnendu quoted the Ethereum founder CEO on balancing privacy and transparency, I thought was a good way to sum that up if we have to really gain customer trust. We talked a little bit about the initiatives on health digitization and how they can help towards more consistent outcomes, towards inclusion, and also towards significant advancements on the medical investigation side, as Bartos talked about. And finally, we talked about scaling of startups. With that, let me thank our panelists who've joined us from all over the world. I was very happy to see how so many of you are connected and have presence in India. And we hope in the coming years, you see the same from our Indian companies in your regions as well. And we promise that we won't just compete, but we will collaborate. With that, this session comes to an end. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, panelists. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.